Alrighty, welcome to another episode of the One Last Cast podcast. My name is Jonathan, and as always, I am joined by my host, Merriel Solesky. Say hey, Myro.
Myro, how's it going? How's it going, Jonathan? How's it going, people?
Well, it's the middle of May. Fishing, I think, has been turning on pretty good.
Yes.
Um, it's actually been. I is in your experience, is this kind of cold for May? It's been kind of cold.
I think every year we get a different flavor of what it's supposed to be. So I don't think it's definitely different, right? It's a different May than last several Mays for sure.
Yeah, we've been having I think the last 2 or 3 weeks we've been having like a small cold front, once a week. And I think this weekend it's supposed to get down at least to where I'm at, into the 50s again. So, I think that's been making fishing pretty good. It's kind of like a fall pattern almost.
Right.
Um, yeah,
Fish,
but
the fish have definitely enjoyed it, and we've been enjoying catching the fish too. So it's definitely
yeah,
been
I've been actually I haven't seen mosquitoes until this past weekend when I was fishing the GRS, which is, by the way, is our topic for today. Um, but before we go into that, definitely want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Dirty South Kayak Anglers. It's a Facebook group. If you search it up on Facebook, it is a great kayak group, kind of talking about their experiences around the Texas coast. So if you're into kayaking and fishing, go ahead and join the Dirty South Kayak Anglers group. DSKA for short. We also have 4A printing. I know Aaron, you've messaged me here. He messaged me earlier last week talking about our towel orders. If you're looking for our towels, custom merch such as buffs or anything like that, reach out to 4A printing. They can do it all, and you won't be disappointed with the quality of work that they do. All of our towels that we do are printed by 4A printing, so give them a look up. And also Knocking Tail Lures, my favorite soft plastics that I've been using for over 2 years now, I think. Um, they swim on the fall, and also they have that built-in rattle in the tail. It just brings in the fish. Been catching some good trout and redfish on them. Got some good flounders on them as well. And if you're looking for them to go look up Knocking Tail Lures, and you can find them online. They have them the big 5 inch, the 3.5, and I believe, or the 5, 4, and 3, I believe is the size that they have. Don't quote me on that, but they have 3 sizes, and they've been all real good.
Oh, also, I might add on the DSKA, I might message you if you send a request to answer the questions. Admin are pretty tough on you guys wanting to answer the questions to make sure that you want to be involved in the kayak group. So you might get a message from me. Hey, can you please answer the questions I denied? So resend with the questions.
Just make sure you're not a bot.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, today we're gonna kind of go into the Galveston Redfish Series, or GRS, tournament that happened this past weekend. It was my first GRS. Merrill, you haven't fished a GRS, but you have some tournament experience, and kind of set the stage for us in terms of. I know some people who listen to us are tournament anglers, some of them aren't, but like kind of give us a good tournament story to kind of get the blood pumping and and set the mood for
Well,
this. And then we'll go and after that we'll go talk to our guests.
I don't know if I'll set the mood for it because this one's not a happy. Well, I guess it's typical, right? It's not a happy ending. This tournament story. So, me and a buddy of mine decided to fish one of the bigger tournaments that I was successful in a couple years back, or many years back, and it's mainly boat guides. This is down in Port Lavaca or something like that, and big money entry fee, big payouts. The payout was 25 grand, and so I was doing my homework, and one of the stringer was just so happens to cater people that catch bigger trout and one bonus redfish, right? So it's the way the string was set up. So I was on some healthy trout. I convinced my buddy this was a good choice. We go out, we pay our fees, we meet some of the people we're competing up against, and these are guides we're competing up against, and we go in the morning. I always ask, like, mainly on the boat division, if it's okay for kayaks to fish, and is there any extra rules we need to know about and stuff. I do read the rules, and sometimes the rules are catered for people that have motors and boats. So I go through that whole spiel. So we get out in the water and we catch our trout like right off the bat, and we're like, we're upgrading, we're trying to upgrade, but we're like, man, we got healthy trout. Like there's no, like, we're just here kicking time. Let's go catch a redfish. So we go to a totally different spot. We put our trout on the live well, and we go to the redfish spot. We go to the redfish spot, and we're making our way out there, and we saw a boat just like going through some shallow areas. I'm like, dude, that dude's gonna get stuck. Sure enough, he gets stuck, and people are passing this guy up, seeing he's stuck. The guy was throwing his anchor out and trying to pull himself out of the sand or something. I think he also ran out of gas or something. I really don't know. I know I shot a video of it. And so we go and help him. And I think a bigger boat actually comes by, one of those bigger tugboats. And he's like, oh, I can't get it. He's too far away from the markers. We can't. And, so we were left with the option. Do we help him, or because we're trying to assist him? Hey, this guy needs help. And we're working our way towards him. And we finally get to him. Tugboat passes by, like, hey man, can you help this guy out? We're fishing the tournament. Say, oh man, I wish I can. I just want to make sure you guys are going to help him out. So here we are, two guys in a kayak trying to pull out this boat that's taking on some water. The engine failed. He was stuck on it. They managed to get off the sandbar. And so me and Johnny, we figure a way to pull him out, and we start using our pedal drives to pull him out. The guy's like 2 hours away. But I remember when we're first looking at him, and I'm like, these guys are going to get stuck. And I told my partner, I was like, look, we're at a point where if we go to the redfish spot, we can pull off our redfish, book it all the way back to Port Lavaca, and we can make the way in. And we had to make a choice. Did we want to help the individual because all these other boaters weren't helping this poor gentleman or these two individuals out? And so we ended up helping. The choice we made was to help the guy out, and come find out our trout stringer alone would have beat everybody in poundage. And we just needed a dink redfish to make the way in, and we would have won $25,000. And that was my crybaby moment, because I felt like, man, that would have been a really good payday. That's what I should say, crybaby, but it's definitely a scar. Like that one's definitely one that dug deep, and that one hurt. Right, because it's like our trout alone beat everybody's stringers. Wait.
Yeah, but you did a good deed, and hopefully that resulted in good karma, right?
I haven't won $25,000, so I don't know. So I haven't been to a tournament where I would have won that. But that's a choice that we made to help out a boater. And I remember my legs were just burning because we had to take them all the way to the boat ramp. We took them all the way to the boat ramp. I think we were maybe like not even a quarter of a mile away from when another boat decided, okay, yeah, let me help you guys out. But we're burned out. And I looked at the guy. I was like, hey, man, y'all want some trout? We got him in the truck because we're pretty close to the boat ramp. So, yeah, man, I'll take him. We go to the truck, and I give him the trout. He's like, oh, my gosh, I didn't even know trout get this big. And I was like, yeah, those are tournament trout. Go ahead and enjoy those. So it was a pretty sad moment for us. It was a good moment, and just my scar that still hasn't settled, I guess. So I think I should share that scar with you guys. But I feel like we made the right choice.
Yeah. So we have a comment in our chat section right here from Robert. He said, you won in my book. Yes.
Oh, thank you, Robert. Merriel. I appreciate it, bud.
You've also won in my book, man.
All right.
You're doing the right thing. But yeah, by the way, which we are live. We've actually switched our days. We usually go live every Wednesday. However, we are now moving to Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. So if you want to join us live, you can go to facebook.com/One Last Cast podcast, and we are live every other Tuesday. And you can join us, talk to us, ask questions, ask our guest questions. It's a great little way to kind of get some fishing knowledge from local people that we try to get on here. So feel free to come and join us, like our Facebook page, go follow us. We're on Facebook, YouTube, as well as all of your favorite podcasting platforms. Today, though, we have a very special guest. we have Drew Turner of the Paddler's Playbook, which is an awesome podcast as well. He is based here around here somewhere in Houston as well. Go ahead and give them a listen. I'll let Drew kind of talk about his podcast a little bit as well, his details, that way that you can follow him and listen to him as well. He also runs his own custom rod business, Turner Rods, and he can talk about that as well. But let me get this from him. How's it going, Drew?
What's up, guys? Hey, I knew we were doing a podcast today, but I did not know that we were doing it in the future. You guys are talking about how it's May. Bro, it is April 18th. It is not May yet. Both of y'all were talking about how cold it was in May. I'm like, damn, we went to the future.
Yes. It's still cold in May.
Look, if it's in the 50s in May, then we've had some really cold weather. If it's in the 50s next month.
But even in April, right? You feel like it's been pretty cool for a long, because April we're usually getting a little bit of heat, right? We're hitting the 90s in April.
We've had a few more fronts. Yeah, we've had a few more fronts, and most people will probably, like, if you're not a fisherman, then you just probably know that your electric bill hasn't been as high as it usually is. And I know mine was nice last month, so I'm happy.
Are you enjoying those mornings, getting out on the water, nice cool weather, no mosquitoes?
Man, I'm getting out in the mornings like one time for pre-fishing and then tournament day.
Oh, okay.
I haven't done a ton of fishing. This is when I really start to fish. I like fishing during the summer. Late spring, summer, and then fall. Everybody loves the fall. I didn't fish in the winter time forever. My son played basketball, and they had a game every Saturday from December until spring break. So I was always there every single Saturday. So that's what I didn't fish the winter time for like 6 years. So now I just don't fish it. I just build a bunch of rods. That's when I'm busiest building rods too, is Good. November, December, because people are getting rods for Christmas and things like that. So I'm pretty dang busy November, December.
People talk about some sort of like off season during the winter. I don't know what that is.
We don't know what that is either.
Yeah, I do. I participate in off season. I am the winter time, but I'm just not fishing.
Man, but the rod business has been picking up for you, huh, Drew?
Yeah, I've been pretty busy the last few weeks. It went from, because usually, like I said, I will build a whole bunch of rods in November, December. I'm talking about enough where I don't even take any orders in January. Like, I'm like, yep, if you want to order, that's fine. Like, I'll take your deposit, but just know I'm not going to start on that thing till February, mid-February. Like, it's going to be a month or two before I even start on your rod. So after Christmas this year, I had a few trickle in, and I was like, okay, that's fine. And then right when I started getting ready for tournaments, it's like, bam, like 8 people came, like, ordered in a week. I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to be busy doing this and getting ready for the tournaments. So, and doing the podcast. So,
right. Congratulations.
And going to baseball practice. Like, it's all the time.
Oh, yeah. So if people want to listen to your podcast, kind of give us a little bit of a rundown, your elevator pitch on your podcast.
So if you don't already subscribe to it, check it out on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, everywhere that you can find podcasts. We used to do a lot of lives. I don't think I'm going to do very many lives anymore, only because I'm rolling solo with the show this year as a solo host for this season. But you can find it on all the podcast platforms. We have a Facebook, we have an Instagram. I try to keep up with all that, but it's difficult, even with the co-host, it was difficult, even when it was me and Chris, it was hard for both of us to keep up with everything. And now that it's just me, it's even harder. But I am doing the show now weekly. So I'm putting out a show every week, and that's actually been a little bit easier doing it by myself, because I only have to schedule for myself. And I've been doing it in batches. So I've been scheduling like a Tuesday and Thursday, and schedule 2 people for Tuesday, 2 people for Thursday, and then I'm done with my whole month of recording. So it's been a little bit easier and actually less time putting the show out weekly, because I only have to work around my schedule and then the guest schedule instead of a third person. Because I don't care what anybody says, 2 people, a little easier to schedule. 3 people, multiply it times 3. 4 people, multiply the difficulty times like 6. The more people that you have to get involved, the harder and harder and harder it is to schedule anything. And that goes for podcasting, that goes for fishing trips, like that goes for barbecues, that goes for everything. You start adding more than 2 people to schedule something, and it's harder by like tenfold.
Oh, so the rumor is that you're gonna do a podcast barbecue, right? Is that what you're pitching over here?
No.
Actually,
it's funny that you say that too, because I do love to, like, I have a nice smoker. I love to smoke briskets and, stuffed purloin and stuff like that. But I haven't been able to do it since we bought this house last September, and I moved my barbecue pit. The bottom was starting to rust out of the firebox because it's a 2x2, 1/4-inch steel firebox, and it's 20 years old. The bottom was starting to rust out. Well, it's so big, I just grabbed a hold of it. I sat on the back of the golf cart and somebody else drove, and I was like holding on as we were going over bumps and everything. And the whole bottom of my fire pit fell out. So I haven't been able to use my smoker since last September. And the girls at work love me to bring brisket up there. And they were on my butt today. They're like, hey, we will pay for somebody to come out there and weld a new bottom onto your smoker if you can get that done, please.
Let's do it, man. Whenever you get it, man, I'm down for it, man. I know a lot of the fishing community we used to do, like, for DSKA, a lot of meet and greets and meet new people. We'd always get some new people and some of the old people that's still in the game and wanted to meet new people. But I know there's a big craving for it, right? So I'm down, man. The other admin in the group for DSKA, they've been busy with their lives, so I get it. I know me and Scott been pushing and Grouch been pushing, like, come on, let's do it. So, like, I'm down, dude. Like, I'm pretty sure we can get at least 20 people, if not more.
I got to get my stuff welded on. If there's any welders that are in the Conroe area that want to come help a brother out,
Jonathan said he's got a pellet grill, so we can just pellet grill.
Wait, what?
Let's trade some fishing trips for some a little bit of welding on my barbecue pit. Let's do that.
You go.
Right. Well, barbecue aside, I think today we were going to kind of give us a little bit of recap of your experience and also my experience of the GRS, which happened this past weekend. So I kind of, Drew, I know this isn't the first year you've done it. This is the first year I've done it.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of, let's just go over your, obviously we don't want the secret sauce that you put onto to get onto the monster redfish here.
Man,
but
I'll tell you guys, because I sent you a message and I was like, hey, man, just ask the questions, because I'm gonna be vague until you ask me specific questions.
Yeah.
But I will talk about everything except for where we fished. Like, I'll tell you, like, what the area sets up, like, what baits we were using. I'll talk about all that. I have no problem doing that, because every area that you find is going to have different variables. And I mean, I can talk about the shoreline and then the channels leading in and things like that. I just won't tell you exactly where I launched, because I don't want to see nobody else out there.
Right.
Yeah, that's fair. So everything is open except for pin drop.
Right.
Exactly.
So, gotcha.
Exactly.
So those in the comments, if you have any questions about any of that, just post in the chat and we'll try to get to you as we go along. But yeah, how did your day start, and how did it end for the GRS?
So this is our second year to do the GRS, and we signed up for every event. Like, we wanted to go ahead at the beginning, and we did the same thing last year. We signed up, we committed. Last year was 5 events. So we signed up for all 5 events, paid for all 5 events. We were going to fish all 5 events, like, straight off the top. We had some success last year. We had a 3rd place, a 5th, a 6th, a 7th, and then like a 12th. So
That's
I mean,
good.
all of
I
them
think
but
it's
one.
good.
Yeah, all of them but one of them, we were in the top 10. Now we wanted to do a lot better. We wanted to win, like win. That one that we got 3rd, we ended up getting big fish in that one, so that was nice. We got to take home 2 checks from that. And then this year, for this one, we got 6th place. We really wanted top 5, and we got knocked out of 5th place by Evan and Meadows, 2 and Meadows, who were the very last participants to weigh in fish, and they knocked us out into 6th place, which was fine. I always want to shoot for a top 5 finish. If we're really on fish, like I'm shooting for a top 3, but every tournament that we go into, I want to have the mindset that we're going to be top 5. We're going to be a top 5 team, and I just want to have that confidence because I think just like when you're choosing baits, if you go into something confident, you're going to have better outcomes than if you just go into it just like, oh, I mean, and there's nothing wrong with this. People that go in, they're like, hey, I just want to go out there and have fun. Okay, that's fine. I want to go out there and I want to try to win. So I want to have the confidence that we're going to be a top 5 team on any day, any weather, any tide, anything. And all that comes from preparation before the tournament even starts. I've talked about this on my show. I think that probably 90% of tournaments are won a day, 2 days, 3 days, a week before the tournament even starts. And that's by being prepared, like having all your stuff together. And we talk about this in one of my upcoming shows about tournament prep. Just having good vibes, being prepared, getting out there, you know, fishing. I mean, there's so much that goes into confidence. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be like crazy homework, but if you fish an area enough, you should have confidence that you can find 2 fish in one in area A, one in area B. Like you should have confidence. Hey, I know I can find in this marsh system, I know I can find 2 fish. And that's where you should start if you want to get into tournament fishing. If you want to start fishing GRS, you need to get confidence that every single time that you go out, you're going to bring in 2 slot fish. And then from there, build it up. I know if I fish these spots, I'm going to bring in 2 5-pound fish. I'm going to bring in 2 6-pound fish. Okay, now I've learned the area enough that I'm catching 7 and 8-pound fish. When you start catching those 7 and 8-pound fish pretty frequently in your pre-fishing, in your fun fishing, in the same area that you've learned, that's when you can be like, all right, I'm confident we're going to be top 5, top 10 team in these tournaments.
What was y'all's weight, if you don't mind me asking?
We were like 12.8. It wasn't a very high weight, but last year, the early tournaments, the April and it was the April and May tournaments. I want to say like 14 pounds won the May tournament and 14 pounds won the April tournament. It's not often like this past tournament. I think 16.7 or something won it, and 16.5 was second, and then it went down to 15.3, and then it went down to 13, and then into the 12s. It's not that often that we see these huge bags in the April and May tournaments. You know, those are more in the fall tournaments and even sometimes into the summer where you see some of the bigger weights. But heck, there was a 10-pound fish caught on the boat side, and it wasn't even over 27 inches. I don't know if you saw that, Jonathan.
Yeah.
It was a 10-pound, like 26 7/8 fish. Yep. It wasn't even a 27-inch fish. That sucker was a football, man.
Yeah. If you go into the Wikipedia definition of a football, that redfish is in there.
Oh gosh, man, that thing was huge.
Yeah. But yeah, I think one of the big takeaways from that little thing, that little spiel that you just gave there, is a lot of it has to do, the tournaments are won way ahead of the actual tournament. And I think your mindset going into it is very, very important. Just because you are, even whenever you have confidence as a fisherman, whenever you're out there, the game plan always goes out the window. Things change. It's all about adapting and figuring out the situation of the day. And for some people who aren't as experienced in tournament fishing, when things change, that demoralizes them and they're out for the day. You know, that's it. And whenever you have low morale out there, that one bite that you need, you get that one bite, you're gonna miss it. Something's gonna happen because your morale's not there. You're gonna set the hook and you're gonna be like, yes, I finally got it, and it's gonna come off. And instead of like resetting after that, having short-term memory, It's like being a goldfish. You need to just forget. Just keep going. You know there's food. You know there's stuff around here. There's fish around here. Just forget and keep plugging away. But for some people, it just sticks with them and sticks with them and sticks with them, and that's it. So
I'm not like a hippie tree hugger, like essential oil type of guy. Like nothing crazy. Like not even crazy. I wouldn't even say crazy. I'm not like that type of person. But I 100% believe with Mother Nature, if you put off good energy into Mother Nature, you're going to get good energy back. If you put off negative energy into nature, you're going to get negative energy back. And that goes for fishing. That goes for hunting. That goes for just hiking. That goes for like bird watching, like anything that you have to do out in Mother Nature, around animals, around anything. You put off negative vibes, you're going to get negative back. You put off positive vibes, you're going to get positive back. I don't know. I can't explain it. Like I said, I'm not like one of those weird hippie people, but I'm just saying, like,
when you say
positive gets positive.
I picture like one of those bingo ladies with all the trolls and all the little gadgets and just like, all these bingo
daubers.
Yeah. But anyway, that's funny.
Yeah. So whenever you guys head out there on that day, obviously you've done your homework and you got your weights. Actually, one of the questions I saw actually on your page, you've done your research. You're out there. You know what's supposed to happen, and it's probably not happening to go into plan. At what point do you move?
I've been struggling with this. I've been struggling with this internally, and I actually was just talking to my brother before we came on here about this. Two of the guys that have been killing it, like over the past 10 years that have killed it, Joe Arthur's been killing it, and before him, Clint Bargy was just hammering everybody. Now, these guys are both known for fishing in areas and just grinding it out in one small area, like for the whole tournament. Like they may fish a pocket, they may fish a shoreline, just grinding and grinding and grinding it out. And they've been really, really successful doing that. One of the things that happened this past weekend is we wanted to fish this certain shoreline, and we've noticed that our bigger fish have come off this north shoreline of this back lake. We're like, all right, all of our big fish. I mean, when I say we've been preparing for stuff, like whenever we go fishing and we catch anything over like 6 pounds, I'll go into Google Earth Pro, where you can label stuff and drop pins. And I'm dropping pins in my Google Earth Pro where we caught it, what the tide was, what the day was like, and how big the fish was. So now whenever we choose an area, we're looking at different things. And I'm like, okay, we've caught all of our big fish on this one shoreline. So we get there in the morning. Guess what happens? We hit a nice fish on that shoreline. 30 minutes later, hit a nice fish on that shoreline. 15 minutes after that, we hit a nice fish on that shoreline. And then it's nothing for 45 minutes, an hour. And what do? We move to a different lake. Now, we should have stayed and just worked that shoreline all day long. So my answer to your question would be, if you're not confident in that area and you're not seeing signs of activity in that area and you haven't caught a ton of fish to know that every time that you go, there's a nice fish in that area, if it feels dead, the water's not moving, you're not seeing any bait activity, I would go move to a different area. But I would also caution you from moving if you're confident that there's been fish there that you have caught in similar conditions on multiple occasions. Now, don't just say, okay, I've caught fish here one time 2.5 years ago on a high tide, and today it's a low tide and the wind's blowing from the south at 15 miles an hour. This is I'm gonna fish this tournament spot. If it don't look fishy, then like move, get out of there. But if you really want to tournament fish, you really should completely learn at least 3 or 4 areas. And when I say completely learn, I mean know what section of that marsh holds fish on a low tide, a high tide, a windy day, a full moon. And if you know those fish are there, keep on grinding. But if it feels dead, trust your instincts and leave if you're not extremely confident in that area. Where now, me and my brother, we're extremely confident in some areas. We are going to grind it out, and our boats are not going to hardly move. Because some of the best people that I know in the tournament kayak redfish series,
Actually, the guy that won it, James,
yeah,
he has that same mentality. He grinds it out in that one area.
JR and Tony, they grind out. And I know exactly where they grind it out too, because you can't get into that area where they're grinding it out, because they are grinding out. And I'm not joking. It's a 50-yard by 50-yard section of a back lake, and they cover that section all day long, and they freaking hammer it, and they won the tournament because they know that there's fish there. But it all comes back to how much time have you spent on the water learning a certain area. Now, you can luck into fish. Like, you can always go find a new area and catch 2 fish. But if you want to be consistent and find 12 to 13 pounds will probably get you in the top 10 in every tournament day, if you can get into 13 pounds. So if you can consistently find 6 or 7 pound fish, like, you can compete and get in there to maybe win some tournaments. You pick up one upgrade in that same area.
Yeah, and I think for us, I this season I teamed up with Jake Adame. He did pretty good last year as a solo kayaker, and this year he wanted a partner, and I talked to him, and we decided to fish together. Which, by the way, him and his stepdad, they have so much knowledge. I've only just begun to scratch the surface on all the knowledge that they have. Being predominantly a trout guy, I've always lucked into redfish fishing for trout, and it's the same, but also at the same time very different type of fishing. Going to these back lakes, and I'm trying to approach red fishing the same way as I do trout, which, again, some of it works, some of it doesn't. But something like that you've talked about, where it's, if you know and you're confident and you're going to stick to that stretch, it's the same thing with trout. Whenever there's big trout in this one little section because you fished it so hard, you're just going to sit there, even if it's like a 20-yard stretch, just fish it, hit it and hit it and hit it until you get it just right, and you'll get that one trout bite that you're looking for. Not always the fun way to fishing, just because and not because you can move 20 yards down and you'll catch like 20, 30 nice fish, but you're fishing that one little stretch, that 50-yard stretch, a 100-yard stretch, and you're looking for in this case, you're looking for 2 bites. And it's not the fun way, but it's a kind of the way that you can do to get in the money, as they say.
Yeah. And the fun thing about tournament fishing is you're only, like you said, you're fishing for 2 big bites. You're not fishing for 23-inch fish or 22-inch fish or 21-inch fish. The thrill you get whenever you hook it, and it's usually not until the second run. When that fish takes its second run, you can go like, ooh, this is a 7 or 8 pound fish. Like, I can feel this is a nice fish. Then you scoop it and you're excited, and then you put it on the board and you're like, yes, this is it. That's where the excitement hits you. And then the rest of the day sucks until it happens again, because you just got to sit there and you got to grind it out and grind it out and grind it out, because there's not a lot of 27, 28-inch fish that hang out in the same areas all the time in the same marsh systems, because normally whenever they start to get 27, 28, 29, 30.
They're competing against each other.
They're competing against each other. They're bigger. They're eating more bait, and they're starting to move out of the marsh. Like, it's just this isn't Louisiana where we have giant bulls. Now, you will run across bull reds in the marsh, but those fish are a large population of those fish are starting to move out of the marshes. They're getting more into the open bays and then out to the ocean once they start to get a lot bigger. So they're fewer and farther between whenever you start catching those fish. Like, for every 7 or 8 pound fish we catch, there's going to be 2 or 3 5-pound fish that are mixed in there.
Yeah. And going back to where we're talking about when to move, Jake and I, our game plan was to sit in this back lake all day. That was our plan. And there was a certain section that we wanted to fish, but we were waiting for that tide to come over the oyster beds so that the redfish can get on top of them. And funny enough, we were sitting in the front part of the area where it leads into the lake. It's just these deep cuts, and I was sitting there and I was fishing like I was trout fishing, letting the current bring the bait, through it. And I did that. I lost one, and I was like, no problem. Got like a 17-inch trout. It was nice little fat trout, and then I got like a 25, 26-inch red that went like 5 pounds or something like that. And I'm like, okay, so there's redfish coming in, that's good. And then the next cast, I got a huge thump. I set the hook, drag, head shakes. I thought, man, this is that feeling. I got a 27, 28-inch redfish on here, and it turned out to be a gar that
man,
that just inhaled it. Like, it had it in its mouth and everything too. Like, it ate it and everything. I'm like, okay, whatever. Next cast, another thump, set the hook. It's another gar.
Yeah.
Next cast, another gar.
Jesus.
Gee, you were tearing the gar up. You were gar king.
I was tearing up the gar. That's actually the most gar I've ever caught on a like fishing in my entire life. Like, I've never had that happen before. But unfortunately for us, whenever the water did come up, the bait kind of came up, but the redfish didn't. And we stuck to our plan. Went around these oyster reefs. There's multiple reefs around this back lake, and we went to each and every single one of them, and it was just dead. Like, there would be a couple mullet flips, and like, it should happen. It just didn't happen. And then after that, we could completely like deconstructed our game plan and started hitting all these random little cuts that we had around the area. Jake ended up getting like a 35-inch redfish. But after that, it was just grinding at every single spot that back lake that has fish in the past. It just wasn't happening. And I think that's one of the things that I learned and I'm struggling with as a red fisherman, because with trout, I fish wider areas that have much more varying kind of topography. Yeah. There's reefs or cuts, or there's these, things that I can find, these grass and everything.
It's more open areas.
It's more open areas. Yeah. Exactly. I have more options. Whereas you have a back lake, obviously there are the cuts that go into the back lake, and there's shorelines and there's reefs and stuff like that, but it's still, the whole thing is just a back lake. And sometimes I found with pre-fishing with them, sometimes they're just not back there. So you can fish the whole back lake and they're not there.
Yep.
And that in a boat, that's one thing, because you can run to a different back lake and they'll be there. But in a kayak, you can't really run, So
you gotta, to me, and I'll give a little bit of juice on this. Like, you've got to search out places that have multiple lakes that you can get to with the kayak. You need to search out places that have interconnecting channels between the lakes, maybe some smaller little lakes in between there, something that you can get to maybe deeper water, closer to the intercoastal, something that may have some old cuts in it that are man-made and dug. There's all kinds of places. Like, I mean, over there, Goat Island has some man-made stuff. There's the old intercoastal canal that you can find that from Tres Palacios Bay all the way up. There's the old intercoastal that are cuts there. Find a place that has both shallow water, protected water, and I know this sounds easy, but it's not that easy.
Yeah.
Shallow water, protected water, back lakes, you have some channels, you may have some creeks, you got old canals. That way, whenever they're not in that back lake like you're talking about, you can go maybe hit the channel, or maybe they're at the inlets, or maybe they're at the mouth to the intercoastal. Like, there's usually redfish. The redfish don't like to travel that far. They didn't get that big by swimming all the time. Like, if it's just like us. If you sit around in one good spot and you eat a whole bunch, you're gonna get fat. Now, if you're running around and you're running to Whataburger that's 8 miles away, eating and then running back 8 miles away, you're going to stay skinny no matter what you eat. So those bigger redfish, they want to stay fat. They want to stay in a smaller area, but they want to be able to go from really shallow, maybe to in some grass, maybe to over some oyster, maybe to some, deeper water in a channel. They don't want to have to go very far. Whenever it gets real cold, let's just dip out another 800 yards and there we go. We're in the intercoastal. Now we're a little bit warmer throughout the year. The only time they really want to go far is when they get off and they, get into the 40-inch range and everything else, and they're out there in the Gulf, and then they're just chilling. They're chilling in the deeper water all the time.
That's the Drew Turner diet right there. Get Whataburger every day, but you need to run 8 miles to get
Yeah,
it.
no, I do not follow that diet at all.
So Whataburger is supposed to have the healthiest burger, right, in Texas?
I have no idea.
That's what I heard.
Is there such
eating
thing as a healthy burger from fast
the
food?
healthiest burger, right? Out of
I don't
all
know.
the burgers.
I
don't know. I don't know. I think you got a point there, but
I don't know.
I think there was an article that said that it wasn't quotes because obviously burgers are not healthy, but
yeah,
Whataburger has the best burger, but nah, I don't know about that.
Not
man.
best, but healthiest burger. I think it's more beef and more natural stuff than it is like preservatives on the burger and bread and stuff like that.
I
The
think
least unhealthiest.
the least unhealthiest.
This is what it should be. Is that an oxymoron? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think the In-N-Out people are going to fight you, Merrill, on the healthiest burger flame.
What's In-N-Out?
I don't know what In-N-Out is. It's something for California, I think.
So, Jonathan, did you guys get any of the storms that came through, or did you see any of the lightning or anything?
Yeah, right in the morning. Right
at lunchtime. It was
at lunchtime. We were.
Ooh, there's thunder.
Yeah, every so often you see a flash in the distance. I'm like, man, you pull out your phone right away and see where it's going. But it missed us completely.
Yeah.
So whether that hurt or helped us, I don't know, because actually, I find at least for trout, right after the storm goes through, fishing is usually really good. Just that half an hour after that storm just goes through. I've had multiple times where we'll be on San Luis Pass waiting flats out there.
Oh, pin drop.
Yeah. You gotta find those sandbars out there. But we were waiting these sandbars, take our kayaks out, get to some sandbars that you normally can't walk to, and we would just stake out there and walk around and feel out exactly where those drops are and all that stuff. But we'd be out there, and of course it's in the summer, and these random thunderstorms will pop up, and when they come through, you're kind of questioning like, maybe we should have gone in because this is kind of getting kind of bad. The wind kicks up, and it's like the current starts ripping a little bit.
Yeah, I was gonna say it rips in that area.
Oh yeah, it rips. So yeah, there's been more than one or two times where I've been like, okay, this is kind of hairy now.
Yeah.
Go back to the kayak and just sit in it,
Yeah.
But afterwards, after that storm goes through, it gets dead calm, like flat. And that I've had some really good trout and also redfish come up to those flats, or they're already on them, and just for some reason I think that whenever that current kicks up, it starts kicking up all the stuff in the sand and stuff like that, and now they're rushing up onto that sandbar and start eating stuff. So man, there's a video that I probably somewhere on my page somewhere where it's like dead calm, and it's still raining a little bit, and I'm just throwing like a chrome spook, and the topwater strikes are
Amazing.
chef's kiss kind of topwater
Yes.
bites kind of thing.
Crazy in the rain.
Just crazy.
I have some very memorable moments on San Luis Pass Flats. One was one is like it was clockwork where the redfish would run, where the grass stops at the end of where you couldn't wade. Like where the redfish would just run along the grass, and it was almost clockwork right before the sun went down. It would just catch a whole bunch of redfish. They would just, for like a week straight, the redfish would just be there. And that was a good routine. That's a good memory for that spot.
We ended up getting a little bit of rain right there in the morning, right as we were pedaling out, getting ready for first cast. And I'm glad I bought me some Frog Talk bibs, the Pro Series Frog Talk bibs, and they're the breathable ones.
Mm-hmm.
But since I knew it was going to be a little bit rainy, I didn't even wear pants. I just had on underwear and my bibs, and I did have a shirt on, and I had my jacket too. But I didn't even wear pants all day. I just wore those because I didn't want to be too hot, but I also didn't want to be soaking wet.
Yeah,
all day long.
At least it wasn't. You and I were talking earlier in the week, and it looked bad. Like earlier.
Oh, it looked really bad.
It looked really bad.
Like we were gonna get like an inch of rain in the morning. Like it looked horrible, and I'm glad that we didn't get that.
Yeah.
But the bite for us was really good in the morning, and then it seemed to turn off about 9-10 o'clock. But that's also when we moved spots, and then when we came back to the original place that we were fishing, we both hooked into really nice fish that were upgrades. And I know they were upgrades because I could hear my brother. He was right around a point from me. I could hear him because when we hook a fish, we yell out "hooty hoo." Like if you ever hear "hooty hoo" across the marsh, that's me.
We're in their spot, guys.
Yeah, that's me and my brother. That's me and my brother fishing. But I hear "hooty hoo," and then I hear explicitive after explicitive after explicit. I'm like, oh man, he lost that.
What a loser! And then he loses.
And then I'm going along this shoreline that we're talking about, and the water was a little dirty for the area. It's usually a little bit cleaner. And I'm not joking. The redfish, I'm going north. The redfish is coming south, and it's literally 4 foot beside me on the kayak, like beside me. I'm watching him swim by the front of my kayak. I didn't even release any line from my rod. I just dipped my lure right in front of him, like literally dipped it in front of him, and he took it, went for a run. I didn't get a good hook set because I literally dipped it in front of him. He wrapped me around my rudder and came off. Oh. And it was because I saw the fish. It was definitely an upgrade. And this was like a minute after I heard my brother just cussing and going crazy. Oh. So we had the opportunities for upgrades. I also had a 28 and 3/8 fish that we put him in the live well to let him see where he was going to be when he relaxed, because they're measuring on slant boards. If you catch usually a 28 1/4 on a flat board, you put it on a slant board, it's going to be under 28. Like you're going to get 1/4 of an inch. He was a little bit over. He was in between 28 1/4 and 28 3/8. So we put him in the live well. He started to relax, put him on the flat board, and I was holding that damn thing up at because the slant boards is only 5 inches. Like I was holding it up at like 10, and I couldn't get him under 28. And I'm like, God dang! I'm sitting there shaking it. And I'm like, oh God, I gotta get this thing
upside down.
Oh yeah, because it would have been another 7.5, 8 pound fish. And I'm trying to do everything I can, and I couldn't get him to be under 28 on my flat board, no matter how I did it. But after the tournament, I went up to Hunter, who also, he runs the GRS. He's one of the owners, Hunter and Mark, and I got a flat board. So we have a slant board. I bought a slant board. We are going to carry a slant board in the kayak, so I do not have to guess and do that anymore. We just got to figure out a way to make sure I got it straight. Yeah. Right. Put it on a board or something, but I think it's worth taking so we're not guessing. if it's going to measure on a flat board once it relaxes a little bit. But we had the opportunity to upgrade 3 times, and 2 of them were missed, and then one of them was just, I mean, he had like 4 or 5 little hairs on his tail that were over 28 inches with me holding him like 10 inches up in the air. So
snip.
Yep, we threw him back. We threw him back. He went back. So,
but that's the thing, that you put yourself in the situation to give yourself the opportunity.
yes, yeah, and it was the same shoreline that we said we were going to fish all day, but then we went off of our plan for a few hours and then came back to that same shoreline.
Yep.
Which we shouldn't have done that. We should have just pounded that shoreline, drifted all the way down, came back up, drifted all the way down, came back up all day long.
Yep.
Because 5 fish were caught on that same shoreline. 0 fish were caught in the other places that we went to go try.
Yeah. Yeah. So for us, like I said, we just brought in that one fish. Luckily, though, we did get we got some money out of it because it happened to have four spots. So we got second in the spot pot, which I jokingly told Jake that he should have drove faster, because first place also had 4 spots, but they just came.
They got there before you guys.
They came 3 people ahead of us. So.
Oh man.
But yeah, I got a.
You got to figure out a way to get that checkup behind you, my man. I told you that at weigh-ins. There you go. You got to figure out a way to get that behind you.
Yeah,
That'd be cool.
I'll figure it out. Unfortunately, this is also my work office too, so I
you gotta let them know you're a winner.
Exactly.
But the funny thing is, in my tournament career, I actually have more tournament winnings in side pots than I do with the main pots.
Hey, that's a good thing, man.
Yeah.
I don't have any side pot except for that big fish one, like no side pots.
So me and Jonathan had a run where we'd place right outside the money every single time. It was almost a curse. I was like, gosh.
It was 2 or 3 tournaments where we came in and it was like 4th place, and the third was in the money.
Yeah.
And I think one of them, we were literally outside that by like a few ounces.
Right. Yeah.
Man.
It was a redfish. It was a stringer tournament, and it was like everybody was bringing in redfish, and we brought in big old heavy trout.
Yeah. It was all trout, and
everybody was like, "What? What's wrong with these guys? Oh, we catch big trout. I don't know what you guys catching." But, yeah.
Oh, speaking of that, my brother for Saltwater Survival Series, the redfish tournament they just had. He ended up getting 3rd in that, but he texted me. He said, "Hey man, you think I should do these side pots?" And I said, "Nope." And he said, "Why?" I said, "Because Jonathan's gonna win the trout side pot. I'm just telling you, don't sign up for it, because Jonathan's gonna end up winning the trout side pot for that event."
Yeah. Spoiler alert, I did. So.
Exactly. And you won it. Exactly. I told him either Dustin Nichols, if he's fishing it, or Jonathan is going to win that trout side pot.
Yeah. And it's funny because I went out there with the game plan, and I had an area where it was literally like I was going to fish for my redfish, and then I was going to fall back and fish for trout. And what's funny about that was I was so tempted not to enter the flounder side pot, because I haven't caught a flounder in that area in almost a year. Like, I know they're there, I just haven't run into them, but I decided to do it anyways. And I remember once I hit send on the registration, I'm like, this is so stupid. I'm not going to win a freaking flounder side pot over there. Luckily I did, because I caught a nice flounder there too.
You took the slam pot too, right? Or
no, I couldn't find a red. I would have. If
right.
I found a 20-inch red, I would have got the slam side pot, but I couldn't find a red at all.
The slam pot always pays pretty good, especially when nobody gets the slam for a while and it just stacks up and rolls over.
It keeps going.
Those are pretty cool.
Yeah, I caught a carp. You know,
you gotta put a dot on the tail.
Look, you are killing the quote unquote trash fish.
Oh, yeah.
You caught a carp. You're sitting there killing the gar. Man, killing it.
Yeah. All you needed was a gaff top.
Now we just got you need to get you catching redfish in these redfish tournaments.
Exactly. I sat there and I caught carp, and like there were redfish there. I just couldn't figure out why they weren't hitting my bait, and then I decided that that actually what ended up happening was I was fishing in an area where it has a lot of freshwater runoff, and I was expecting that the runoff wouldn't hit there for another day, because once that happens, the redfish there, even though they're still there, they're incredibly difficult to catch for some reason. And when I got there, it was off color, but it was still fine. And once that sun came up, and I heard and saw some redfish busting, that tide was outgoing, and it just like that, just chocolate milk. All that freshwater runoff came, and that was it. And I was actually very surprised I caught trout there, because again, usually trout in that area, once that freshwater runoff comes, it's kind of dead.
Does it
But
muddy it up whenever that runoff comes, or does it clear it up?
no, it's muddy.
It's muddy,
Yeah.
muddy.
Like you put your finger in, you can't see your finger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one thing about the area and the shoreline that we fished as well, as we've noticed whenever it's muddier in the rest of the lake, it's a little bit clearer on that shoreline because there's a little bit of oyster and a little bit of grass.
Mhm.
So that's another thing to look for whenever you're looking for spots, is just, I'm always thinking whenever it's because we've had wind out of everywhere. Like coming up to the tournament, it was like wind out of the north, wind out of the south, wind out of the southwest, some out of the east one day. Like the wind was everywhere. So I knew that the water was going to be probably a little mucked up everywhere we went. And I knew that there was a couple places that the water was going to be a little bit clearer. And with the shrimp hatch and with the shad that are hatching right now is too, those fish like to be in a little more protection, and they like to be in a little bit cleaner water. So I knew if I could find a little bit cleaner water, then we would probably find, more numbers of redfish.
Yeah. And I think that also goes to show, for these areas, you have to like hit it hard, because you don't know what's going to happen on tournament day, and you need to be able to adapt to those conditions with the knowledge that you have. I know with a outgoing tide, it's going to, in 20-mile-an-hour soft winds, is going to be like, this area is to be where they're going to hit. But what happens if it's from the west or the east or the north? What happens if it rains that day, or it rains 2 or 3 days ahead of time?
Yep.
Because these back lakes are all very, they're not sensitive, but they react very quickly to changes.
And they react really, really differently.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and they all set up very, very different. Like the area that we were fishing it's set up where it's very, very close to the main channel that leads out of the marsh system. Where the winners were fishing is literally as far back as you can go in a back lake, not next to any channel at all. So they were pulling fish from a different area, and then I can only speculate where some of the other guys were fishing, but where some of the other guys were fishing and brought up heavier weights, like some of them are like the channels in between stuff. It's not actually the back lake. So take it with a grain of salt when you talk to somebody that's like, man, we were killing them over at so-and-so. If you go to the very back of the lake, you'll find them. They'll be in the back lakes feeding. Well, that might be for that marsh system, but they could be in the very front next to the channel that's leaving out in a different bait system, because they like to be there because maybe the bait's there. Maybe there's more structure that the bait hold on to in, closer to the channel in this bait system. But the other system, there may be a whole bunch of grass in the back of that lake. That's why they're always back there, and the bait is hatching and the bait is back there holding on to that grass. So the fish are further back in there. So a lot of times you'll hear, if the tide's higher, go to the very back of the deal. If the tide's lower, come to the very front. That's true most of the time, but in this time, in the spring, you've got to find out where that bait is, where the shad hatching at, where are the shrimp hatching at, where are they at in the marsh system that you're fishing, and where are they holding at, and you probably want to stay and fish around that area. Now, the middle of the summer, the hatches have already happened. Like high tide, the bait moves to the back. Low tide, the bait moves to the front. Like that's just what happens during the summertime. But in the springtime, You've got to find where that bait is that is hatching, and sometimes it's not in the very back of the lake because it may be low tide and they can't hatch in no water like that. It just doesn't happen. You've got to find out where in your area that you're fishing holds that bait, and you may not catch a fish all day long, but if you're up, you're looking, you're scanning the water, you can see the balls of shad sometimes. You can see what shoreline whenever you're paddling through and you have little shrimp jumping in your boat or jumping by your boat. Like, you have to think about why are they here, what's happening, and just make a mental note of that, because the fish are going to go where there's food and where there's a little bit of shelter, for the big redfish and things like that. So just keep that kind of stuff in mind whenever you're thinking about areas to fish, especially for tournaments in the springtime.
Yep. I think it's just even understanding it's like high tide they're in the back or low tide they're in the front. All of it is still just a general rule of thumb.
Yes.
It's
Fish
what
move.
fish
Right?
move.
Fish move.
They swim all the time.
Oh yeah. I think you're right. They're still they're probably in the same area, but it could change even on an hour by hour, daily basis. And where they may be in the back, one day because it's high tide, the next day, even on high tide, they may not even be back there.
They decided to go somewhere else.
Yeah. We've, and Merrill, I know you've been in situations I've been in a situation with you where it's literally, we could be 20 yards apart and that makes a huge difference.
Right.
For trout. And I know it's the same for redfish because I've been in a situation where it was like a year ago where we were fishing a cut and I was catching nothing. My intuition told me they should have been there, but they weren't there. And my buddy, who was like around the corner, he was hammering them. But we're fishing very similar situations. Mm-hmm. They were just up there. That's 100 yards up, upstream from where I was. So I think having that knowledge, having that baseline knowledge of high tide they're deep, more in the back, and low tide they're in the front, but then adapting to it when you're there. If you're going to take anything away from this podcast, I think that it should be that. So
adapt. Yeah.
Adapt.
You've got to adapt. You've got to do a little bit of your homework, and you need to spend time on the water.
I have
just so your confidence.
I got a quick question for both of y'all. This redfish tournament, did y'all start off with top waters? And as the day progressed, y'all went to tails, or y'all went straight to tails? Jonathan, I kind of know what you already throw, but how about you? How about you, Drew?
Both. We did both. So we usually always start off with both. For some reason, I have some success with a wake bait. I don't like throwing regular top waters, especially on tournament day, because a top water blow up is awesome for a redfish, but you're not going to get as many hooks in their mouth as if you're throwing a paddle tail or a wake bait, because they will knock a top water completely out of the water. I'll throw a top water whenever we're not on tournament day, but my brother's he's got a knack for throwing a wake bait. So he started out the day throwing a wake bait, and we were fishing right beside each other. He'd throw a wake bait in the area, and then I'd follow it up with a gulp paddle shad. And that's how we fished for almost the whole morning up until about 9 o'clock. And then he switched over to a paddle shad. I just don't have the confidence in the wake bait like he does. But he's also caught tournament winning fish with that wake bait. Like he has a lot of confidence in it, and I'm working it the same way he is, and I'm throwing in the same places. But that's where I talked about earlier about that positive vibes and everything. Mm-hmm. I'd rather throw on a paddle shad, and I got positive vibes with that paddle shad because that's what I hook up with. Okay. So we were both throwing, he was throwing the top water, quote unquote top water, the wake bait. I mean, it's under the surface by like 3 inches. It's not under the surface hardly at all.
Like a hunchback, right?
Yeah, like a hunchback.
Yeah.
But if you buy a hunchback and you want to throw a wake bait for a hunchback, please 100% change your hooks. Take those hooks off. They're saltwater hooks. That's fine. Take those suckers off and put you some 3X or 4X hooks on there.
There you go.
Don't even buy Like when you buy that hunchback, go buy you some new hooks for it. I had was it last year? Last year or the year before? One of the two for the Toys for Tots tournament. Man, I got broke off twice on two different baits throwing at schools with the hunchback and got the back hook, two of the back hooks on each bait broken off. And then I had one more in there and I got it bent. So change your hooks. But
That's
yes,
heartbreaking.
we're throwing both in the morning.
Yeah, and actually for one thing, kind of the beneficial thing, um, being a team tournament is, for me, if you have another angler fishing with you, throw two different things.
Yeah.
Just because, like, obviously, our game plan was to throw topwaters when the water went over to oyster reefs. But while the whole day, we were fishing different ways. Also, that's kind of by necessity because we weren't catching anything. but
I mean, you were catching gar.
yeah, I was
Not
catching
anybody
gar.
catch
Yeah,
gar in artificial.
yeah, but we were fishing different ways. Throwing yeah, he was throwing paddle tails, throwing gulp, whatever, and I was throwing spinner baits, throwing wake baits, throwing top waters and everything like that. But I made sure that whatever he was doing, I was kind of doing something different, because we can, and you can find, like, for some reason, even though I know redfish aren't predominantly known to be picky, but they can be picky. And if maybe one day gulp is what gets you the more bites. And if he starts catching more fish he's throwing gulp, my partner's throwing gulp, I'll switch to gulp. If I'm not getting anything, or if I start getting stuff because it's a spinner bait, hey, I throw on your spinner bait. They're hitting on it. So I think that's one of the other kind of advantages to having a team tournament, because you can throw different things and throw different presentations and kind of figure out the equation a little quicker. So
Yeah. I have extreme confidence in a gulp paddle shad on a 3/0 weedless Fusion 19 jig head. That is I will catch, if there is a fish there, I will catch it with that bait. That is how I feel. Like, I have to be that confident, like that I'm gonna catch it with that bait. Like, I've had rough days where they're not hitting anything and I can still get them to hit that bait. Now, I know you guys are sponsored by Knock and Tail, so I'll say this. I love my gulp paddle shad, but you're going to get one, maybe two good fish out of one paddle shad. And them suckers are $8 a pack. And I think you get 8 of them or 6 of them in that pack. You're going to get one or two good fish, redfish, out of that pack. So on days that's not tournament days, I may not be throwing that paddle shad as much, and I may be throwing some other paddle tails that I can that are a little more economical. I'll say it like that.
I do the Psycho Shad by Chicken Boy Lures. That's one of my I catch, for some reason, my biggest fish come from those baits.
I think anything you can get in front of a redfish when they're really biting. And in this tournament, they weren't really feeding. Like, I didn't actively see them busting bait on the shoreline or, slashing through pods of anything. But we did see a few backs come out of the water. And if you got your bait close, they were following it and they were eating it. But they just weren't, like, moving around like crazy, crashing bait on the shoreline or anything like that. And actually, a lot of the times when you see that can be some of the most frustrating days on the water, when you see them just smashing shrimp on a shoreline, and then you go over there and you can't catch them.
they're
like,
just
what
not
in
looking
the
at
heck?
yours.
Yeah, they ain't looking at yours. They're
Yeah.
looking at everything else on that shoreline. So some days it can be better to not see as much action. And I found that the better fishing days for redfish is when it's kind of an in-between, where every once in a while you can see them moving. But I've also noticed that when the redfish are swimming a little bit faster, like if you see one and it's moving a little bit faster, they're more likely to strike than if they're just sitting there. But they're also more likely to strike than if they're slashing and like killing bait on the shoreline. It's that you got to find that in between, not when they're just sitting there just chilling, not when they're going crazy feeding. If you can find that little bit where they're moving around at a pretty good clip, but they're not like really feeding, that's when they're really you get a bait close to them and they're going to turn around and hit it.
Yep.
And that's what it was this weekend.
Yeah.
You just had to get a bait close to them and they were going to come eat it.
Yep. Well, I know we've kind of run up over our time, and I know we could talk fishing, Merrill and I know you, Drew, can talk fishing all day, all day. But I think this is a good ending point on for us, and of course, maybe we'll definitely invite you back some other time and we can talk more fishing.
Yeah, we
Let's
can
do it.
join your podcast too, like if you need us.
Let's do it.
buddy.
Yeah.
Let's do it, man. I've been doing it. Like I said, I've been doing it in batches, so I got the rest of this month already done. Let's do it. Let's do it now. Maybe I need to have Jonathan on to tell me how to win these side pots. That's what we're gonna have it. We'll do a side pot episode.
There you go.
Side pots.
Side pot, Jonathan. There.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so before we kind of hop off here, let's give everybody your handles again for the Paddler's Playbook and how to get in contact with you, how to listen, and all that cool stuff.
Yeah, if you want to check it out on social media, Facebook, Instagram, just search the Paddler's Playbook. It'll come up. We also have a group, the Redfish Network. You can go check out the Redfish Network. There's a lot of people posting there. We call our listeners the bro staff because you don't have to be pro staff to listen to the show and to get some of the same discounts that we offer at our different retailers. And you were talking about GRS. And there was a lot of bro staffers there at GRS that were listeners of the show that I got to talk to. But also, the Kayak Fishing Texas, he had an event down in Corpus. Kyle did that hook and ladder event that he had. And there was a lot of representation, bro staff down there too. I'm sure there was some One Last Cast guys there as well. So it was cool to see and hear about the different people that were around. If you want to follow me, you can follow me on Facebook. Just check out Drew Turner. And then on Instagram, it is Redfish Drew. If you want to look up anything for the custom rods, check out Turner Rod Co. I see my man Miguel. He posted, hey, Drew, my rod is working awesome. Thanks, bro. Miguel, that is one of the, I never would have built this rod. Only because I do true custom rods. I mean custom. Everything is exactly what you want it. Yes. I'm not just going to go buy a whole bunch of components and throw it together. Now, if you want a cheaper custom rod, I can go buy your handles. I can buy, just some generic stuff. We can put it together. We can get you one, put your name on it if that is what you want. And I'm sorry, I can't remember the Mexican soccer team, but there was a Mexican soccer team that he wanted his rod themed after. So I mean, this rod had yellow grips. It had red inlays on there. It had blue everything on there. It was yellow, red, and blue. It had the logo for the team on there. I have a decal printer where I can put whatever you want as long as it's one color on a fishing rod. I can do snake skin rods. I'm about to do a sea snake rod for myself. That's going to be pretty legit. Color changing stuff. It's really custom. So if you want a rod and you send me a message and I give you a price and you're like, holy cow. Well, that's because it is truly custom. Some of them I am building the grips. I'm gluing the cork rings together. I'm making it one of a kind just for you. It's more about having a one of a kind rod than it is anything else. So check out Turner Rod Co. Instagram, Facebook. You can send me a message if you see my wrap truck. Just honk and wave at me. But make sure you wave. Don't just honk, because then I'll think that I cut you off or you're mad at me or something like that. But yeah, check out the show on anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Just search the Paddler's Playbook and you'll see everything pop up there.
Awesome. And of course, for our sponsors, we have Dirty South Kayak Anglers, Facebook group that's talking all kayak fishing on the Texas coast. Go ahead and head on over there if you're looking for anything like that. We also have 4A Printing, which does custom merch for us, including our towels. Talk to Aaron over there for our for what he can do for you, and also Knock and Tail Lures. Our Saw Plastics sponsor here. They have a internal tail rattle that is just awesome for redfish, trout, and flounder, and they've been awesome for us. Before we head out, Merrill, I know a lot of this episode you kind of got left on the wayside on this one.
I know I enjoy it, man. This one's just to hear you, different people's perspective and tactics, and no, I enjoyed it, man. It was great.
Yeah, kind of a let's end on something that anything that you want to end on before we head out today.
Nah, man, I just enjoyed the show, man, and thank you, Drew, for your insight and your advice. Pretty cool. It's just different people have different perspectives, and it's good to hear something different and refreshing. And I think it's refreshing, more likely.
Well, awesome. Thanks again, Drew. And this has been the One Last Cast podcast. If you want to listen to us, you can find us live every other Tuesday. I need to change the stuff on our Facebook page, but it's facebook.com/One Last Cast podcast. We are on live on YouTube as well as all your favorite podcasting platforms, Amazon, Google, Apple, etc. And thanks everybody for listening. You guys have a good one. Tight lines, and see y'all next time.
Thank you.
Peace.
Guys.